Hello everyone tuning in. I'm going to try and turn up my phone. Okay. Hi love. Oh, hello Sil. We've got the Crystal gang joining in already. Oh, Gabriel, how you doing, man? Oh, I know that's your Instagram name. Thanks for joining. Hi, Sil. Oh, we were in a bit of a rush this morning. I've still got my hat on because we've just come from the park. It's freezing. But I've got my orange nectar smoothie. Oh, let's see. Crystal gang, yeah. The whole Crystal gang's in. Hi, Dutch treats and sweets.
Hi.
Hey, Tracy.
It's working.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Hi, everybody.
Okay, good. Because I forgot my headphones, so I wasn't too sure how good the audio is going to be. But
Okay.
yeah.
Hey, everybody. Hey, Heidi.
Hi. Okay, I'm just going to send out a few invites. Just
Okay.
give me a second. Doing
I was,
glorious, brother. Happy days.
I was going to say, it must have been cold outside when I saw your hat.
Yeah, I've got my hat on and everything. We've just come back, so I'm like,
Oh, man.
keeping my bald head warm.
It's going to be like 80 degrees here in Southern California today. I'm actually overdressed right now.
Wow,
Oh.
that is wild. Yeah, I was rushing around, but we're here. It's all
Yeah,
divine timing, and
exactly.
I'm not too sure what the energy was last night, but the kids just did not sleep well at all. It was yeah, it was wild, and they went to bed kind of like not too late, but it was anyway.
Yeah. I slept like a baby last night. That's all I
It,
know.
yeah, I'm jealous. But for those who don't know, for people just joining, speaking to the wonderful, lovely Tracy. She's a mutual friend through my wife. Tracy has a lovely candle shop. I should have actually lit one, but like I said, I was in a bit of a rush today. But we've always got your candles lit around the house
Oh,
all the time.
thank
And
you.
you're correct me if I'm wrong, but also is it psychologist? You study psychology?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have my first degree in psychology, yes.
Okay. And numerology,
Self-taught.
self-taught, self-taught numerologist, and I can't vouch enough. If you haven't already had a reading from Tracy, get yourself a numerology reading. Even if you don't understand numerology, like I'm still an absolute noob when it comes to numerology and all that stuff, and researching about star seeds and whatnot. This is all new to me, and it's fascinating, but I think it gets to a certain point where you're aware of other people's energy and you can tell who's blagging it, who's like, BSing and who isn't. And Tracy is an amazing. It was so many synchronicities has happened since that reading. It's pretty insane actually.
I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah.
And it's like the gift that keeps on giving because, like, I always tell people it won't all make sense right away. And then you do see things and you're like, oh my gosh, that goes back to this or that.
Yeah. Yeah. And anyway, but today's not about me and my reading. It's about you, Tracy, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, do you want to just tell everyone a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and how on earth did you get into spirituality, numerology, energy readings, all of this wonderful magic?
Yeah. So I'm Tracy. I'm born and raised in Southern California. I have definitely been jumbled around in different ways, especially by the pandemic, like most people.
Yeah.
I would say that probably around like 2008, 2010, I started getting interested in psychology. And before that, I definitely didn't really have a spiritual connection. Like, I'm the type of person I felt like God never heard me or never responded to me.
Yeah.
So I felt very disconnected, and but always felt like there was more there. But anyways, I started with just kind of working on myself, and that took me to psychology, and it's really probably just as much for my own personal self-help that I wanted to learn it as opposed to just helping other people. Um, I come from a long line of like generational trauma, and digging into my family's like just our history and why we were the way we were really just took me off. And I started getting some really weird experiences around 2016 after I had a few family members that passed away. Um, so I really had what I would call like angelic experiences, and just knowing that there was more there. Like, I've always known it. So yeah, I'm just a person, like, I love digging into things. I love understanding myself. I love understanding humans and the world around us. And I am, I guess, very sensitive to energy. I feel like I grew up with a lot of dark energy. And so when you kind of have that experience, it just makes it easier to find the light. So I'm just like, I'm an energy junkie, maybe even an energy nerd.
Yeah.
But that would be, I guess, my best way of kind of describing myself because I wear so many hats. Um, but what I decided to use for my business is I describe it as self-healing tools for busy people, is kind of what I think of my candles as. So, a way to interact with energy, to work with your own energy and yourself without always spending a lot of time. It's not always possible. So that's really what kind of where my candle direction has gone, I guess.
Yeah. And it's we've lived in California for a number of months, for like I think almost a year, and it's like one of the most busiest places I've ever
Mm-hmm.
lived. So
Yeah.
to have these tools to learn how to slow down, and that it's almost like necessary for your sanity, isn't it?
Yeah. Definitely. And for me, I used to live in Los Angeles. So I lived there for about 15 years and I loved it. But now I've come about 45 minutes east of there into the valley. And it is a completely different pace out here, which is really
Yeah.
cool. I feel really, really grateful to have this space, like to be here at like a house on a property with my family. And I mean, I have the door open and like you haven't even heard anything. Like, it's so quiet and peaceful. So yeah, I'm really grateful to have that space and still be close to everything.
Yeah. That's lovely.
Cool.
So was it intuition then, Tracy, that led you down this path, would you say?
No, it was just a bunch of things I couldn't ignore.
Yeah.
Um, so I think one of my most, well, if we're talking about going back to the origins of my numerology, in 2015, my family, we lost my aunt on my dad's side and my aunt on my mom's side. And there were a few like energy experiences, but I'd say a year later, like after the 1 year anniversary of them, um, things just started to get really weird and unignorable. Probably one of my favorite experiences, I think it was like literally the weekend, but it was definitely the same month, the 1 year anniversary of one of my aunts passing away. And I worked retail, and we had like a cosmetics section, and my store manager was out there trying to make everything perfect. And I just hear her from across the floor. She just like screams. And I'm like, what's wrong? And she's like, somebody took nail polish and they wrote all over this fixture. Now I have to clean it. And I'm like, well, what did they write? Because, like kids and like young people, they always like write in cosmetics. Like, it's probably going to be like a curse word or something.
Yeah.
And she goes, somebody wrote life is good. And I'm like, I have that literally tattooed on me
Oh
for
yeah.
my aunt, that the one that it was her anniversary, that was like her favorite brand was the Life is Good, and she always like had it, so it reminded me of her. But that was kind of what I took from her like passing away, because she's one of these people, she did a lot of really adventurous things, and so it just inspired me, like, you never know how much time you have, so like you need to get out there and do the stuff you love. So that's why I got the Life is Good, to kind of remind myself, like, it's not always the craziness. Like, there's so much more out there. And at the time, I was definitely a very busy person in my human life and my, job in the matrix, like, I definitely wasn't really aware of a lot of things going on outside of that.
Yeah.
Um, and then not long after that, I started seeing the number 666. So I was like, seriously, like, it was in my change. Like, every time I got change, I'm getting back like 1666. Like, just crazy. It's like it was everywhere. And it got me to the point that I was like, what does this mean? Like, am I gonna die? Like, what is this 666? So I actually posted it on Facebook. Like, you guys, like, this has been happening. And I showed a picture of my receipt. And I'm just like, I don't even know what to think of this. And one of my good friends that actually lives in Japan
Mm.
messaged me, and he said, hey, you need to check out angel numbers. And so I went down the rabbit hole, and angel numbers are a known way of our angels and our guides communicating with us. So there's a lot of different meanings behind it, but basically, numbers are a universal language. Like, they can come through to any walk of life. We can understand numbers. So that's really what got my attention. And I'll just finish off that little area, like that year now, since we're talking about it. But
Yeah.
at the time, I lived right outside of Hollywood, like East Hollywood, and I had a great place, and the building sold, and the owners, they wanted my apartment. So basically, they tried all this really, like, all these dirty tactics to get me out, and I basically fought them for like, it ended up being all the way up until 2018, like a year and a half. I was in and out of court with them.
Wow.
And the whole time I was seeing the 666 and the angel numbers. And it was the message I got from researching 666 was like, things are what you make of it, right? So if you think something's bad, it's going to be bad. If you think it's good, it's going to be good. Like, you have that power, but it's not negative. It's just like trying to wake you up and say, hey, think positive and focus on what you want. So at the end of the day, a year and a half later, I ended up losing the court battle, but everything worked out fine. Like,
Yeah.
literally everything was fine. I lost nothing. And like, to be honest, I'm actually really happy with where I ended up later. So, like they say, we don't always know why things are happening. But there was definitely like just a lot of like speaking up that was involved in that, and a lot of lessons. But that really just kind of showed me, like, you have to trust that things will be okay. And that's what that 666 ultimately was showing me. So
Yeah.
after that, I was just everywhere with the numbers.
I've been seeing 444 a lot lately. That's been
Okay.
my kind of number. But it's a funny one, isn't it? Like, if you don't understand, I mean, most people will probably think like 666 is associated with the devil or something bad, but it's not always
Yeah.
necessarily the case, is it?
Yeah, not at all. One of my favorite numerologists, Sarah Yip, you guys can look her up on Instagram, Sarah Yip, the numbers queen. She's talked a lot about 666, is a lot associated with like witches, like the witch wound, and women following their intuition and kind of like speaking up for themselves. So 666 is a lot about women who've come back, like how many of us have had lives where we were burned at the stake?
Right.
I personally recently, like within the last year and a half, had flashes of what I believe to be a past life where I was at the guillotine. So,
Oh,
and I have tons of throat chakra energy. I have throat chakra relationships with both of my parents in this lifetime. Yes, we're talking about numbers today. I just saw that comment. So the 666, it's like women, it's the women being suppressed, right? And it's like the once we speak up, we're all of a sudden the bad guy. Like we're only the good woman if we are seen and not heard. And we fit into the role of like what the traditional man wanted like a couple hundred years ago or whatever, right? So the 666, it's about us pushing back against those like the gender roles, the gender norms, the places that we were cast into society. Yeah, it's coming out. And I mean, a lot of us feel that, a lot of us embody that. And I think probably most of the people here can resonate with that. When you don't do what they want, all of a sudden you're not the good girl. Like,
yeah,
so there's a lot to
yeah.
it. Yeah.
And I want to touch on that a little bit, but going back to, so you mentioned about family trauma, and I see a big pattern here amongst this space, especially online with people that I've met. It seems like all of us who are on this kind of journey of ascension, or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
has experienced some childhood trauma. And without going too deep, like how you said did you say you're at your family's property now? Like how are they supportive with what you do, with the work that you do? Because I know it kind of goes against the grain in terms of society and everything, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's a work in progress. When I bring them in, they're pretty supportive, like when I bring them to events and like my mom loves coming to do stuff with me. My dad has actually passed away, so it's me, my husband, and my mom that live together. And then I have family in different places. But for the most part, people like they don't see what I do. So if you ask my mom, she would probably describe me as unemployed. even when I'm going to school full time online, like she would probably describe me as unemployed because she doesn't see what I do. Um, so in that sense, it's hard for people to understand like this is what I want to do. Like I don't want to work for anyone else again. I want to set something stable for myself that can't be taken away. So yeah, it's a very back and forth. But yeah, I'm lucky to have support, and I also have those people that would love to see me fail.
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because I suppose, I mean, at least like my parents and the generation before those, it kind of like it's hard for them to fathom, but the world is like it's totally a different world than what it was when they grew up, you know?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I even have people in my family that they're a little bit older, but like in my generation, and their dreams were crushed like by my family. Like my family was like, no, you can't be an artist, you can't be a musician, like no, you can't, like you need a real job. So there's people who their dreams have already been crushed and they've given up, that are like expecting me, they're like, you have to do it too, but I don't. I'm not going to.
But why do you think they've got this kind of like mentality without like judging too harshly? But why do they not want to see someone else um, be successful?
I
In
think
your opinion?
I think if we're, a lot of times we're talking about narcissistic people, especially like narcissistic parents. And when we do better or we expand, we're breaking away from their control or like their dynamic. So,
Yeah,
and then also like if you're raising your frequency and doing something like that's soul led, like that's very irritating to stagnant energy. So those are my easiest answers and opinions.
yeah. I had a thought recently is if I'm successful and they see it, then it makes them question what they've done with their life, doing something that they weren't happy doing
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, definitely. Seeing that things can be done differently definitely makes people realize like where they may have done things wrong. And that like it happened kind of recently because, my dad, when he passed away, he left my mom with a lot of debt. And um, she is very much like she wants to be responsible and take care of everything, but I'm like, it's not realistic. Like, you can pay this debt or you could buy groceries, basically. Like, you have to be realistic. Like,
Yeah,
and, we've talked about her filing bankruptcy. It's a real thing, for people to do. It's not always the worst option. And,
yeah,
when I was like 9, 10 years old, we had lost my first family house. My parents couldn't afford it any longer. And um, I find out now that they actually considered filing bankruptcy 3 different times. Like they started the paperwork so it hit their record, but they never went through with it. And my mom actually said recently, she's like, wow, she's like, if I had just like, let go of my pride and filed bankruptcy, she's like, we might have never lost our house in the first place.
yeah,
And I know that she's never loved a house the way she loved that house. So, sometimes they can realize it. And, I mean, it's too bad they can't change it. But, we also, I think our support helps people understand that it's okay that you didn't make a different choice. You did what you did. Like the past is the past, and you're fine right now in this moment.
yeah. And of course, there's so many. I mean, we've been programmed since birth, like, debt is this bad thing. But the people, telling us that debt is a bad thing, i.e., the government, are in trillions of debt anyway. And it's just like, anyway, that's like slightly going off topic a little bit. But
Yeah.
guys, you're not the only ones out here who's alone and battling,
Yeah.
throughout all this. It really is a spiritual battle, isn't it?
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I don't think it gets easier, but we just have more tools to be able to deal with it.
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, if we learn from the lesson, that's the best possible outcome. So
Yeah,
even just learning, I think in my family, there's a lot of learning to be happy with what we have, like to be grateful for what we have. So, and sometimes it's a little harder lesson, but yeah, most of us
yeah.
will get there.
And well, I don't want to talk too much about my experiences, but just to set the table, I know you spoke to me about a NDE that you had when you were younger, and
Yeah.
I've read about these experiences. I think they are very much real, and I've almost kind of experienced something similar like that through meditation, like leaving the body, etc.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I'm getting chills.
So I'd really love for you to, if you feel comfortable, just to touch on that experience about near death experience. Like, what is it? Is it real? Is there another side when you leave the body, etc.?
Yeah. Well, so I think it's important to talk about, and like, I don't know if I've really had the platform to talk about it, and it just really came through as like, there are people that need to hear it that have experienced similar things. And I actually was listening to a video before this where they were kind of touching on what is part of my story, and it just felt very like, okay, this is a great place to, talk about it.
Yeah,
So, just generally, I grew up knowing that I almost died as a child. Like, I knew that that happened. My mom acknowledged it. She said my brother literally thought I was going to die. I just remember, I don't remember a lot, but I remember being, I guess, like run through the hospital like on a stretcher. And I remember like the mask, they were probably like giving me oxygen or something. I remember that. Like, I'll never forget that smell of that plastic on my face. Um, and I don't remember a lot else, but I have memories from the same time frame. And my earliest memory that I actually have is me watching myself as a baby. Like, I was in the room watching myself as a baby fall off the changing table. And like, I was observing it. Like, I was not like the baby, right?
Yeah.
And my mom acknowledges that she knows that like I rolled off the table this one time as a baby, and she's like, will never forgive herself. But I remember watching it as the observer. And one
Wow.
of the biggest experiences I had, I feel like I thought I was like 4 years old, like 3 or 4. I really don't know for sure, but I remember me and my brother were watching like Saturday morning cartoons, and we are eating cereal. And I just remember like all of a sudden, like I was in my body. And it was like I had never been there before. Like if I was there, I was the observer, like it was the first time, like all of a sudden, like I was in my body. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, go to your room and change your shirt, like, so you can just step away. Like, just get away from everyone for a minute so you can, like, calm yourself. And I went in the room and, like, pretended like I spilled something on my shirt and just, like, changed my shirt. And, like, that memory is so clear as day to me. And I never understood it. Like, it never made sense. And I'd say within a year to 2 years, like things got really like family traumatic in the sense of like I just had too many human things going on that if I was like there to do something super spiritual, like no one was hearing it. Like they were like everyone was like, shut up and get out of our way. Like go do something else. So, life was very human after that. But I've always gotten ringing in my ears, and I've always felt like it was like a message. I don't know. It's just the weirdest thing. Like these things that I felt as truth as a kid that people are like, no, that's not real. That's not real. And then like here I am, like 20 years later, like in my mid 20s, like 15 years ago now, in my late 30s. But, just realizing, oh my God, like these things are real. And
Yeah.
I was having experiences that didn't make sense to me. Um, but yeah, I think on a soul level, like I think I definitely came here to do something. Um, there's not a lot of information on the walk-in stuff, so I'm still really like trying to put it together for myself.
Yeah.
But I know what I experienced, and I know that other people experience that too. I know that my family has a ridiculous amount of trauma. Like, did I come here, to like clear the bloodline? Like, I do a lot of work with that of like trying to clear my family's like ancestry, but it's so weird because, okay, so then who am I? I can't think too much back to it other than like, I know that some souls only need an experience of being born. They don't need the whole life. They just need the experience of like being created and coming through. Um, which is why I believe like when, kids have issues, there's reasons. Like they don't always need to, live to be an adult. Um, there are different reasons to come through, and I could see myself not wanting to be born, if that makes sense. Like I could see myself not wanting to do the being birthed part. Like maybe I didn't need to do it. I don't know. I would love to know so much more about like agreements I had as a soul, or I just don't have a lot of answers. But flash forward, one of the greatest things I've actually ever done has been work. There's a gentleman, his name is Damian Wynn, and he does a lot of different meditations, like DNA healing type stuff. But I actually kind of got led to him for information about the walk-ins. And he did like an online course. It was a 2-part course where it was a lot about calling in like past aspects of yourself.
Yeah.
So even if you have not had a walk-in experience, like there's theories that like say you have a traumatic death in a past life, like you could leave soul fragments. Um, So that's one of the concepts, but also that if you've done like soul exchange, like you could have parts of you that haven't actually integrated. So I did the work with him and I felt like a different person. Like of all the things that I'd done, I think it just proved to me like how powerful it was because I started to feel different. I started to have different experiences. Like I started to feel like my mind and my soul opening up, you know? Um, so that kind of proved to me that like I needed that as well. Um, but yeah, if we want to talk about the magical side of it now, so my dad ended up passing away in 2021 and he was a bit of a hoarder. So me and my husband spent about a year just we went through the whole garage. Like I'm in the garage now. You couldn't even come in here. You couldn't even open that door before. Now it's my shop. But I was going through all this old paperwork and it felt like I could feel his energy here. Like
Yeah.
it's the craziest thing, but all that time that I was going through stuff, like I felt his soul version, like not my dad version, like his true soul was like here, like doing it with me. So I'm going further back into the 80s and I get to like 1987 and I find my medical paperwork for the day that I almost died. And so like now I actually have like some answers because my mom she just doesn't remember anything else.
Right.
So what had happened, I'm so trying to be neutral. I have like no opinion other than what I know about myself. Um, so what the paperwork showed me that 2 weeks before I almost died, I got a vaccine schedule. Now, something I know now is that people can have bad reactions to vaccines as a hereditary feature. So it's something that I actually inherited from my dad, and they probably just didn't realize it at the time. So I had a really, really bad reaction, and it led to me having a really high fever that sent me into a seizure. So that was when I went to the hospital and that's when they said I almost died. So um on the paperwork, the day that I almost died, March 22nd, 1987, my future husband's birthday. Not the exact year that he's older than me. That was his 11th birthday. But like, okay, we've got 365 days in the year and I almost died on his birthday. Like it's just so wild to me.
Yeah.
Like what? Like
Yeah, I'm getting goosebumps as well.
right? Like and I know that me and him have soul contracts. I think that we had a lot of karma to work out in this lifetime. But something like always told me that there was somebody out there. Like it's like we literally met at a 7-Eleven in Los Angeles. Like that's how freaking random. But we've been together almost all the time since then. Um, so we definitely had soul work to do. That just like proves it to me that that experience happened on his like birthday. I'll never get over it. Never get over that. Um, but yeah,
So when
stuff
you
is
found that paper, did it kind of did it bring up obviously it must have brought like emotions and whatnot, but was there anything?
I felt like it was pure magic. I felt like,
Yeah.
what are the odds that I would get to know that information? Like, and I felt like it was kind of like my reward because my dad didn't leave us much worth wanting.
Yeah.
But, he hoarded that paperwork and I got to see it. Like, it's just incredible. I'm like, I
Yeah.
feel so blessed to know that information. I mean, that's just like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow to me.
And the true magic is it's kind of having those shifts in perception, isn't it? Like is the glass half full or half empty? And I know I've
Yep.
said this on podcasts before, but being on this journey, it is. it's kind of like rekindling that fire that everyone had experienced when they were a child. You know, when
Yeah.
everything was just so magical. I mean, that's as
Yeah.
best as I can describe it. But Cecilia
Yeah.
asked something in the chat, and I want to actually uh,
Okay.
speak it out. But I wonder if that experience sort of, as you as a child, if that kind of subconsciously got you into believing in spirituality. So she asked, what got you? If not, she asked, what got you from not believing into believing spirituality, like that shift?
Well, I've had some really powerful experiences. Hold on, I dropped my notebook, but I wrote some stuff down because a lot of what we're talking about, I've never necessarily talked about to another person or someone that wasn't like really close to me. But I have some really interesting experiences. So one of them was catching a fairy on camera, and you can see that on my Instagram page. I have a picture of like a little fairy orb that was in my room.
I'm gonna have to
Um,
check that out now. Now that
yeah,
you've said that.
I have the before and after. It's really interesting. Places that I've traveled. I was trying to go to a new place every year after my aunt passed away because she really like inspired me. So I went to Sedona. I had experiences with, I mean, I wrote aliens, but like with the stars in the sky, we did a stargazing thing, and I've seen things I've never seen again. Um, and definitely, like, I went to one of the portals in Sedona, and as soon as I parked in the parking lot, I just started crying. It was like you could feel the energy just so thick.
Yeah.
Um, so being able to feel energy, like maybe my prayers weren't necessarily getting answered, but proof to me that there was other stuff there. Proof that there's more beyond like what we see, what we talk about, what we're told. Um, yeah, it just brought me back to like I knew it all this time, but you know, the world around me was kind of like shutting it down for me. Um, did I say Mount Shasta? I went to Mount Shasta too, and that was just an insane experience. I've also had a really, really crazy, well, one of my meditation experiences, I was following a guided meditation where I ended up being surrounded by Lyrans. And in the meditation, my cat had come to sleep on my stomach while I was doing it. So I was like, okay, just lay here, cat. I'm doing the meditation. And when I get there, I'm greeted by these Lyrans, and I'm holding the cat in my meditation. I was like, oh, I hope you don't mind. The cat wanted to come. And they just all start laughing. And they're like, we wouldn't expect anything different. They're like, you're the tamer of the beasts. So apparently, like in the meditation, they were saying that I had lifetimes in Lyra where I was the tamer of the beasts. And it's so funny because I definitely tame beasts. I like to say that my husband was one of those beasts. But I do a lot of work with like feral cats
Yeah.
and fostering and stuff like that. I have a possum that decided we're best friends. I have no say in it right now.
We
So those
Tracy, we've got two wild kids. Can we send them over?
there's no room right now, unfortunately.
Anyway,
Uh,
sorry, continue.
but yeah, no, those were really cool. And then I've actually had a really crazy experience behind Jimi Hendrix.
Nice.
So, one of the ways that we can channel is by listening to music that we vibe with. Like, the music, you just feel it. So, I would do this a few years ago. Like 2020, I had the place to myself because my husband was out of state working. And I would just put on like my favorite music and just like vibe out while I was cleaning. And if you ever like listen to Jimi Hendrix, like it's like going on like jumping on a different timeline. It's freaking crazy. And looking back So if we look at like the color purple, because you know Jimi Hendrix and Purple Haze, um, he was also one of the favorite musicians of one of my aunts that passed away. Not the one we talked about, but the other one. Um, so I started getting like weird, like Jimi Hendrix coming in, and I think it was coming from my aunt, but it got really crazy when I went to visit her daughter who lives in San Francisco, my cousin. And on this trip, no matter what, like everything was purple. Like my goal was to like get some souvenirs to bring home to people. And like everything, the only option left was purple. Like of course, the ones
Yeah.
I wanted, like I could only get purple. And then we were driving around forever looking for parking, and the only place we could find parking was on the purple level of this structure. And then we ended up like walking around and doing the tourist thing. And my friend, she sees like a psychic. She wants to do a psychic reading, but it's like $100. So I was like, you do it yourself. And I ended up going next door. There's like this old hippie guy that had like a rock and roll store, but it had crystals in the window. So I was like, oh, I'll go in here and like see what's going on in here. And so I was like there for like 45 minutes. My friend took forever. But this guy's like telling me all these stories about like the store's been there since the 60s, and one of the original owners was a member of the Grateful Dead. And then he's like, yeah, you want to see something cool? He's like, look up. And I looked up and the freaking ceiling was painted purple. And he's like, we did that out of respect for Jimi Hendrix. And I
Wow.
was like, seriously,
Yeah.
seriously, you led me to a freaking place. Like I went along this little purple path and ended up at this freaking purple Jimi Hendrix, and Megan's making me purple gloves, she said in the comments. But it was, I mean, that was like the start of it. And I
Yeah.
started like listening to his music, and it's just like jumping on a wave of energy. He was very methodical with his music. And something funny I heard recently, I had suggested to you Alexander Quinn on YouTube.
Yeah.
And a couple months ago, Alexander Quinn did a channeling where he channels the Arcturians, and they just randomly mentioned, they're like, yeah, Jimi Hendrix was an Andromedan. He was from the Andromeda galaxy. And something that I've like read about that is that their their reality is not like our reality. Like it's not solid. Like it's constantly changing, like probably much more similar to like a drug trip. Like just it's not even a solid reality. And when I think about it, okay, we all know, you know, Jimi Hendrix did a lot of drugs, but I'm like, wow, like how interesting to think that if he was a starseed that came here from that galaxy, and he was just more in tune with the world in a different way, with the energy in a different way. It's wild. It's just wild.
Yeah. And I'd love for you to. We need you to come back on and talk about star seeds, because I think we could do a whole episode talking about star seeds and whatnot. But I want to
Yeah.
touch on that dead quick. But for those watching, purple, the color of purple, it's a very can't even get my words out. Blah, 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 blah. Significant color. It's like, you know, the upside down triangle, the frequency chart. Purple is like one of the highest frequency in colors. To my understanding as well, you've got the sort of the red and blue, the masculine and feminine, the as above, so below. And when those are combined, it makes purple that God essence in a sense. So it's a really significant color. Am I right on saying, Tracy?
Well, I mean, what you were saying, and you said this the other night too, that was actually something I'd never heard before, but it makes total sense
Yeah,
to me. But yeah, purple is, excuse me, a very high vibrational color in energy healing. And you know, what's crazy is purple is very much associated with Mount Shasta,
right.
which I ended up there finally 2 years after that whole San Francisco Jimi Hendrix thing. And it's like, when I look back, it was calling me. Like the color purple was like calling me because it's very much associated with the violet flame in Saint Germain. If you are into Reiki, like the purple ray, the purple light healing ray, like that's all Mount Shasta energy. And the night, like we did one of those spiritual like hikes on the mountain, and that night there was a global meditation happening because this was 2 weeks after the pandemic started, and we had already had plans, so we just went. Everyone, they're like, we'll still do it, just come.
Yeah.
And we lit some candles and they were glowing purple. Like that was the first time I'd ever experienced that. So yeah,
Wow.
purple is, it means a lot to me, and it's definitely, yeah, you could associate it with like ascended masters. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why purple throughout history was worn by royalty. It's considered like, I don't
Yeah. Yeah,
know, fancy.
yeah, I did. I touched on that with Rich a little bit, and he, to his understanding and research, a lot of the kind of establishments like to invert everything, so they make a mockery out of purple, and this is why you'll always see, like, royalty, wearing purple,
Mm,
masquerading as some, divine whatever. But it's all inversion, to my understanding.
yeah.
But you mentioned about Lyrans. This is something that Cecilia has actually had a dream about. Well, I'll have to talk about that with her. But
Oh, cool.
real quick, because I'm a little bit cut for time, but I want you to come back. I'd love for you to come back and talk about
Yeah.
starseeds. But just real quick, to my understanding, it's quite complex, or it seems quite complex with starseeds. Am I right on saying, for the most part, or not for the most part, but one aspect is it's kind of like archetypes. It kind of sounds like it, like different starseeds are archetypes, but are they also beings, or what? Or what?
Well, so that's not as much, like I'm not as familiar as much with the archetypes. Um, Numerology and astrology get really close together with that stuff. So I'm the wrong person to ask, but I think that you will be like, they'll reach out to you if you have connections. That's what I feel.
Yeah,
Um, I hear a lot of people talk about different collectives, and I just kind of let the experiences happen. The only other experience I had was with the Pleiades. Before I even knew what they were, I literally saw them blinking like this in the sky in Sedona, like just nonstop for like 45 minutes. I was like, what is that over there?
yeah,
Um, and what's interesting is before that, the Mount Shasta guide, he told me that he thought I was Pleiadian for whatever little
right,
reading he thought.
yeah.
So
It is. It is
yeah,
fascinating, like, isn't it?
yes,
It's
absolutely.
it's really fascinating. I've still yet to learn about all of that stuff, but I didn't even know what a star seed was until a few months ago. I was like,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah, there's so many ways to identify, but I think at the end of the day, a lot of us are like working with energy. No matter what you're here doing, no matter what your goal, like I think that we feel it, and I think that we all gravitate towards what feels good.
Yeah,
So, I mean, that's
exactly.
great.
Yeah, we all have different things we resonate with. You mentioned about music. I'm glad I'm not the only one that cleans while still listening to music, but
Yeah.
I absolutely love like the old school '90s like trance, like the trance dance music, techno, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And that always brings me back to like, this is all here for me. Like everything, this is just all here for me. So that's like a fun experience that I had.
Yeah.
But if anyone's got any questions, please put it in the chat. And where can people find you, Tracy? For those who don't know,
You,
because it's going to go on YouTube.
yeah. You can find me on Instagram at the 4111. It's just like the 411 with an extra one since I do the angel numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, find me over at Instagram and you'll get all my updates.
And you have some beautiful candles, and do you do live sales? Is it every
Yeah,
Friday, I want to say?
I'm going live tonight.
Right, yeah.
This is a new one that'll be on the table tonight.
Oh, wow, look at
This
that.
little starfish, or it's called a starfish. It reminds me of like a little face in
Yeah.
there. It reminds me of like Patrick from SpongeBob.
That's lovely. You're definitely an artist, Tracy. Definitely an artist.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, yeah, and I just want to say thanks so much again for your time, Tracy. And
Yeah, this
it's
was
not
great.
easy. I think there's a little bit of extra pressure coming on live shows, you know, coming on a
A
live
little
stream. But I
bit.
like that extra pressure.
Yeah, thank you for not letting me ramble because sometimes like people like the only one person talks and I like a little back and forth. But yeah, thanks for not letting me ramble.
No,
And I think I'll be live at 9 o'clock tonight, Nick. 9 Pacific time.
9 o'clock tonight. All right, get your
Yeah.
candles.
Thank
9 o'clock tonight. But yeah, I'd love to for you to come back on. And I mean, there's so much we can talk about.
Oh
We've
yeah.
only really just scraped the surface, haven't we, in terms of, you know, numerology and star seeds and whatnot, and probably
Yeah.
self-experience as well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Definitely.
thanks.
I would love to come back. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for coming on, Tracy. And I'm going to end the live. Just stay online real quick. I'll just give you a quick call just to say thank you.
Okay.
Um,
Sounds
sort
good.
of offline.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining. If you've just tuned in now, this is going to be uploaded on YouTube for you to watch the whole thing back. And yeah, that's it. Thanks, everyone.